program, everyone. I'm Bianca Rodriguez in New York, sitting in for Christiane Amanpour. In a groundbreaking move, the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. The court says both men bear criminal responsibility for causing mass starvation in Gaza. This is the first time the ICC has targeted the leader of a democratic country and a close ally of the United States. Every member of the ICC, which includes the UK and many European countries, are now legally obliged to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu if he sets foot on their territory. That's more than 120 countries. The court also issued an arrest warrant for Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif for crimes including murder, torture, rape, and hostage-taking. Israel says he was killed during an airstrike earlier this year. The court was also seeking warrants for Hamas leaders Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh, but they are now dead. Christiane broke the news of the ICC's plans back in May. Here's what the chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, told her then.
We'll apply for warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and also Minister of Defense Gallant for crimes of causing extermination, causing starvation as a method of war, including the denial of humanitarian relief supplies, deliberately targeting civilians in conflict.
Netanyahu's office has responded saying that he utterly rejects the absurd and false actions and accusations, calling the body politically biased and discriminatory. So what does this mean for Israel? I'm joined by Israeli author and journalist for Haaretz, Amir Tibon, to dissect the ramifications and the mood in the country right now. Amir Tibon, welcome to the program. Definitely a dark day for Israel, given the historic nature of these charges and arrest warrants. But we do know that Karim Khan sought the warrants back in May. So how much of a surprise is this for the Israeli government, for the Israeli people? The last 6 months, both Israel and the United States, we should note, have been putting extreme pressure on the ICC to avoid just this.
Well, Bianca, this is the kind of thing that even if you expected it, is such a gut punch that it's still a shock for Israel as a nation, obviously for the leadership of this country. And while these are arrest warrants only for now against Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Gallant, who Netanyahu himself had fired 2 weeks ago, there is an expectation in Israel that it could lead to two things. Number one, potentially more arrest warrants for other people involved in the conduct of the war in Gaza. And number two, that phenomena we have already seen in other countries, particularly, in European countries and others, of attempts to issue local arrest warrants against Israelis involved in the war in Gaza, even regular soldiers, not necessarily high-ranking officers, will receive a boost from this decision today. So this is a cause for great concern for Israel as a country, and also for many, many Israelis individually, you can say, people in the military, and even people who, like I said, played rather minor roles in the war in Gaza, but now look at these news coming from The Hague and ask themselves, can I travel to Europe in the coming years?
Yeah, as we noted, there are more than 120 signatories to the ICC, the U.S. and Israel not being one of them. But just moments ago, the Italian defense minister said that if Benjamin Netanyahu came to their country, they'd have to arrest him. France, Ireland, and Holland have also said that they would be obligated to abide in the UK by the ruling. So talk about the response. We have the public statements made by Prime Minister Netanyahu. Yoav Gallant also issued a tweet saying the ICC's outrageous decision will live in infamy. It places the state of Israel and the brutal terrorist organization Hamas in the same equation. We have their responses, but what are you reporting and what are you hearing about what's being discussed within the government now?
So like you said, on the surface, Israel is speaking in one voice. You hear the leaders of the opposition, Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz, also denouncing this decision, and former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett joining rather strongly against the ICC. But the question is, what can Israel do now? And on the legal level, there is an option to appeal. Maybe Israel will try that. Of course, by appealing, you give legitimacy to the decision. So that's a big question if you even want go down that route, and the chances of success are not very high. The other option that Israel will certainly try is to get the United States to apply a lot of pressure and pain on the ICC. And the United States is not committed to the ICC, and we've already heard senators from both the Republican and the Democratic Party in the US threatening to put sanctions on the ICC as an institution and on individuals who were involved in this decision, whether it's the prosecutor, Karim Khan, or judges and others. But there is a question of whether that pressure will actually lead to a change in the result, which is the issue of these arrest warrants and the fact that more than 120 countries are going to respect them. That's a big if. You would need the US to exert a lot of pressure on the court itself, and that could also backfire. The court could say, well, we are not going to let anything ruin our independence. And the other option is that the US would approach these countries individually and tell them, if you respect the decision of the court and you go along with respecting these arrest warrants, there will be consequences to your relationship with the United States. And then what would happen is that the ICC, as an institution, would no longer be relevant, because if the arrest warrant for Netanyahu is not being honored in France, for example, then the arrest warrant against Vladimir Putin, which was issued a year and a half ago, could not be valid in a different country that wants closer relationship with Russia. And I have to remind you, the ICC is also conducting investigations right now regarding Venezuela, Sudan. So this is a very complicated situation. And whatever happens next, it's not going to be an easy solution out of this for Israel. Even if you see massive American pressure, it could take time to have an impact, and it will have its own consequences on other priorities of the United States.